My name's Darren McGarvey and I'm from Fire Station. Welcome to those who are returning to this has become obviously a regular series of calls. This is number 3 in our South Waikato Business Support Series. Welcome to Rachel McGarvey, who's my co-director at Fire Station. Welcome to Francis from South Waikato Investment Fund Trust. Welcome to Eddie Stocks from Kiwibank. It says Muzz Beetle, but that's Murray Beetle from BNZ. And welcome to our Mayor as well, Jenny, you can see there. All right, so we'll just let in other people as we go, and we'll see how we are. So you're welcome to ask questions, but perhaps in the first instance, we'll just use the Zoom chat function. So you'll find that at the bottom or somewhere on your floating toolbar, there's a chat. Just click on that and you can just write questions in there. They can either be seen by everyone or you can send a private question to maybe to Rachel in the first instance, or you can talk to anyone else actually on the call as well privately. Otherwise, yeah, we can always open it up at the end for any Q&A, and you can just unmute yourself. But in the interim, if you could just leave your microphones muted, that would be ideal. Now, I just want to acknowledge, of course, the South Waikato District Council and the South Waikato Investment Fund Trust for making this possible. Without their support, these just wouldn't be happening, and it's a great acknowledgement of their commitment to the local business community. So, as I said, this is number 3. So this one is, as you would have seen, is all about banking, and the banks, like all of us, have been affected. And from what I understand, and I'm sure they'll tell us this, that they've been extremely busy dealing with customers. So we're very lucky to have Kiwibank and BNZ joining us. Traditionally, banks, as I know, being an ex-banker, are very competitive. And it's just really a sign of the times that we've got 2 of them on a call at the same time, co-hosting. So it's fantastic. And long may it continue. So we're going to put Murray on first, and Murray's given me a couple of slides, so we're going to put them up in front of us. Is that right, Murray?
Yep, that'll be great. Thanks, Darren.
Yep. All right. So I'm just going to put them up, and then Murray's going to talk to them. And then perhaps if anybody's got any specific BNZ questions, you can ask those, and then we'll hand over to Kiwibank, and Eddie can give us a bit of an update from Kiwibank. So bear with me for a moment.
Apologies.
That's around, isn't it? Here we go.
Actually, while you're doing that, I might as well kick into it. Darren, is that okay?
Yeah, sorry. You're going for
it. Hey, so first of all, apologies for the Muzz Beetle being on the card there. We're all working from home, as you'd expect. So from a banking point of view, I've been quite impressed with the BNZ's ability to have its staff fully set up at home, access to all its systems, etc. However, the only one thing I couldn't get into was Zoom, so I'm sitting on my personal iPad, hence the name. First of all, I want to congratulate Darren and the team at the Fire Station, South Waikato District Council and Investment Trust, just setting these things up. It's awesome. The ability for our communities just to gain knowledge at these times, is critical. You've got to be able to make informed decisions. It truly is the key. I do want to get across the point that this is not a BNZ Prezzo. I want to give as much information and insight as I can as to what's going on, what we're dealing with as far as facilities, the government, what our offers look like. I'm not a financial advisor. You should absolutely be referring to your professionals and the likes of Darren to get your advice around structures and the way forward. And I guess the critical thing is everything right now is sort of being built in mid-flight. We're sort of building the engine of a plane, which is not a good metaphor at the moment, really. As we travel, the government makes announcements on things like the business financial guarantee scheme, and then we have to come up with what it looks like in this short space of time. And to be fair, it hasn't quite landed yet. There's still a little bit of details around it. So, and Also, there's additional information coming out tomorrow from the Minister around further support to SMEs, especially the small and medium-sized businesses. But I thought I'd just kick off with around funding options, both personally and business, and a little bit more detail around the Business Finance Guarantee Scheme. So the second slide, Darren, hopefully everybody's more than aware as to what you can do from a personal perspective. It started off with a lot of media around home loan holidays. That just absolutely is not the case. It's not a holiday. Interest continues to accrue. We've dealt with, I can't remember the last number, but it's over 13,000 requests so far for home loan holidays. And I understand that less than a third of those are being picked up today, but they may well be picked up as we go further forward. So it's really just a deferment of interest. But some other options in there is, to consider things like going to reducing your principal interest payment to the minimum amount possible, or going to interest only just to keep up with the interest cost, or defer your payments for up to 6 months. From a business perspective, because this Business Finance Guarantee Scheme isn't quite 100% locked down as far as what it looks like, we're dealing a lot with temporary overdraft requests. We're putting clients onto interest only as far as their business terms concerned. Considering everybody with plant and machinery debt, if it's not with us, to go to their provider, the finance companies, and go to interest only. Making sure they're talking to things like their trade finance facilities or invoice financing facilities, just ensuring those terms are being extended just to provide comfort. And then obviously there's the standard business bank loan, which most banks provide as an option. Or then we start talking to our clients about the Business Finance Guarantee Scheme. I've started as an organisation, we're trying to take the word guarantee out of that statement and just call it the Business Finance Scheme. And the reason for that is there's a perception in the marketplace that this is a guarantee of funding, almost like the wage subsidy was. It isn't a subsidy, it's a loan. It's a debt that you have to put onto your balance sheet and you've got to pay back at some stage. The government has entered into a loss sharing agreement with us, but that loss sharing agreement is very much around when it goes ugly. So we get to a situation where the debt isn't repaid, we're having to call up facilities, realise on securities and guarantees, and whatever the residual is, that's when the 80-20 kicks in with the banks and the government. So as a result, it means that we've got to take all the normal securities that you'd expect us to take. As far as the facility is concerned, it has to be fully drawn by the end of September. From memory, the pool's about $6.25 or $6.5 billion. We've got about $1 billion and a bit that we have inside that pool to lend. You can actually draw down on a progressive basis between now and the end of September, and it can be repaid in full or any time between now and this September, but you don't have the ability to redraw it. You can actually reapply, but it's a new application post the repayment. The term's only a 3-year term, so the expectation that we're discussing with our clients is that they go to maybe a 6 or 12-month interest only, followed then by an amortization period after that. I guess that some of the critical parts around this taking additional debt on at these times, it really is one of, does it make sense? This is additional debt. So you need to be really, really confident with your business that you're still going to have a core market around your business products and services post level 3, post level 2, and whatever level 1 the new world looks like. So are your customers that you deal with still going to be in business? Will your customers continue to buy from you and not the competition? Can you still deliver to your customers and collect the goods? And supply chain still strong. So it's really critical that you've got some really good advisors around you and that you're starting to think now as to what the future looks like. That's very much around having the right cash flow forecasting, modelling that shows you've got enough cash to fund the business both through the various stages and once we get to full BAU again. And you should be thinking about different ways to improve liquidity or hang on to cash yourselves. And that's things like talking to your landlord about rent holidays or extending terms for your creditors, collecting debtors quicker, turning stock to cash. Just conversations with IRD about deferring tax or provisional tax, all those sorts of things. It's just critical that you've cash is king through these times, and over trading is very much a risk as we come out of level 4 lockdown. And by over trading, I mean coping with sales growth without having the cash reserves to support that. But in saying that, every business is really, really different. If you're a business that's 100% reliant on international tourism, you're going to be very different to, say, a hairdresser. That's potentially going to, as soon as can get up and running, it's going to be flat out. So it really is critical that you're speaking with your professionals, that you're taking a little bit of time just to digest what it means for your business, and doing this with some real strategy and structure. The only other thing is sort of a bit of a plug for BNZ customers. BNZ for its staff have an employee assistance program which provides things like counsellors and other professionals around mental health, physical health, some professionals around legal and other bits and pieces. We're offering that service to our clients. So if you are a BNZ customer, talk to your BNZ partner or bankers about accessing that. There's a couple of free sessions with the Benny Star people who, as they look after us. Hopefully that wasn't too quick and too garbled.
No, it's good. It's good, Murray. Are there any specific... Oh, hang on. There's a second slide, so I didn't put your second slide up. Is there anything on here that...
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. No wonder I lost time. So the business finance scheme. Thanks, Daz. Business is 250, sales of 250K to 800 million.
80
million, thanks, Kitty. The important part in our case around the 80 million is that if you've got a number of entities throughout the country, so you've got more than one location, it's a grouping rule. So it's the consolidated turnover of your business. I talked about the 3-year term, 500K maximum. You can't fund dividends, you can't fund operating expenses or capital expenditure. You can refinance anything that you've had to borrow around COVID since the 16th of March. So if you had to put temporary facilities in place, you can package that into it. We do have to take general security agreements or GSAs, and we generally require personal guarantees for the stuff that we're doing. We've got a carve out, which I presume is the same for everybody around property development and investment companies. But otherwise, most businesses are eligible for the business financial guarantee scheme. And as down the bottom, we've got to share this information with the government.
Okay. All right. So, are there any specific questions? Have we got any questions come through, Rach? Oops.
You're on mute.
Yeah, nothing's come through yet for questions.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Well,
leave that up there, Darren. I would.
Do you want me to go back to the previous slide, Eddie?
No, that's fine, because I mean, well, that's what Murray's put up, but that business finance scheme is, I mean, that's standard across all the banks. So from a Kiwi Bank perspective, thanks for doing this, Murray. I mean, absolutely, exactly. I mean, it is what it is, and I'm glad that you're calling it a business finance scheme, because for me, the business finance guarantee, the BFG, is a Roald Dahl book. Not something to do with finance, but basically, you know, I think this is a time when all banks, so you've got the 4 Aussie banks and us at Kiwi Bank, are not, whilst we're not necessarily joining together, but we are definitely doing everything we possibly can to help our businesses. The government, there has been, my view is there has been a little bit of politicking going on, and Murray mentioned that when they talked around holidays. The deferment of your mortgage or your loans is definitely not a holiday. The interest does accrue. You will need to pay it back. So I would suggest that your interest only is very much your first option. And then the business finance guarantee scheme, I'm not 100% sure personally whether there's going to be as big an uptake as what the government suspects, due to the fact that it wasn't, you know, I've had people ring up to say, oh, can I have one of those 80/20 loans, please? Basically thinking again that the government is backing this completely. They're not. You will need to repay it. You will need to repay it back over 3 years, and it's going to be, if your business wasn't really a viable business, so if you're classified as being on the bank's watch list prior to February the 29th, you won't be eligible for the loan either. The government has said that unfortunately, there are going to be some businesses which will fail over this period. We obviously don't really want that to happen, but there will be some that will go. So basically, just to cap, the business, you've got to prove from a Kiwibank perspective, your business has been negatively impacted as a direct result. The full loan amount is required to meet urgent liquidity and bridging finance needs while your business deals with the disruption. Your business has no access to additional bank facilities, deposit funds, or other support options. So basically, we're saying if you've got some cash within the business, use your cash first. That makes more sense anyway than taking on more debt. Some of the questions that you will be asked is you'll be asked as to whether you've actually applied for the wage subsidy, what that amount was, have you received it, have they spoken to the landlord regarding rent relief, what was the outcome, do you have any lending elsewhere with other banks, what's your current tax position and what arrangements have they made with the IRD, if any, and then also a budget or a cash flow for the next 3 to 6 months with the assumption that we're in this 4-week lockdown period for a start. And then what revenue do they expect, what ongoing expenses do they have, fixed, variable, etc., and what reserves do they currently have, undrawn facilities, cash, shareholder funds, those sorts of questions. So there will be some hard questions asked, and they are some of them, because we need to make sure that people can actually take on that new debt.
Okay. All right. Well, that was a quick summary. From outside of a lending perspective, is there anything that BNZ or Kiwibank are doing? For instance, I did read something about raising the contactless, limit from $80 to $200. Is anything else happening?
So we've raised I think it's gone across all banks from $80 to $200 for contactless, and for most of our vendors the contactless fees have been taken away. Normally they pay for PayWave is more than it is just the normal chip and pin. So that's all been gone. Interest only for 6 months, repayment deferral is 6 months. We've reduced our credit card interest rates for 3 months, and there's also waivers on any term deposit withdrawals.
Okay, well, that's all good.
That's pretty much industry standard, I think. Pretty much mirrored.
Right, we
I've
have
just seen a question come about the interest that just came up about the interest rate. So that business, the one good side, definite good side to the business finance scheme loan is the interest rate. I'm not quite sure what yours is, Murray, but Kiwibank's pitched it we're at 3%, 3.00%.
Yeah.
And is that regardless to everyone that gets accepted?
Yep.
Yeah, we may be slightly different. We're somewhere in the 3 to 4%, yet to be decided. And apparently our powers that be are still talking to the government around exactly what that modelling looks like. But I would imagine we're all going to wind up a very similar sort of number.
Yeah. As Murray said, the actual, it came out nearly 2 weeks ago that this was going to happen, but the government actually, I don't think, Murray, that the loss share agreement still hasn't been signed, I don't believe.
Yeah.
So there's still details that we were working through whilst we were having to come out and to say, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're going to do, when actually nothing had actually been signed.
Exactly.
So without any other questions coming in, I've got a question, and I've seen this bounced around in forums online the last few days. Basically, the banks still need to go through an approval process. So if you were unlikely to get a loan pre-COVID-19, you're still unlikely to get a loan now. It's not, you know what I'm saying? Like, you still need to be able to fund the loan and prove that you've got income coming in, all of that, to be eligible for this scheme.
Absolutely. So that's the challenging part through this, Rachel, is that some people are going to have to make some pretty tough decisions about their business viability in the long term. If they weren't viable before this, they're certainly going to be more challenged around are they viable post it. There's no point taking debt onto your balance sheet and chewing up equity and losing family homes if you don't have a viable business. Sometimes you just got to make some tough decisions today. But at the end of it, if you can't pay it back, our normal collection processes and things kick in. So that's why we've got to make sure we're dealing with viable business, and there's as much robust cash flow forecasting and modelling as you possibly can do as to assessing what your business does look like in the new world.
Yeah, so on that topic, what sort of information do people need to bring to their bank to apply for this or any of those other options?
So I've got, actually, I wonder if I just email this to you quickly, Darren, from my work one, and then if you can actually put this up on, this is an application form that Kiwibank's got up on its website. So I'll just quickly email this to you. If you can then, so I'm just going to go onto my other computer, and I'll, and you can bring this, you can put this up.
Okay.
Let's just go here. Then, sorry.
While Eddie's doing that, you
Yeah.
know, the reality is got a historic performance is an indicator, is the ability to repay, and then you just overlay that with the projections and around what the future looks like. So those things I've talked about as far as, you know, what does your core market look like, your business, your clients that you deal with, are they still going to be in business, the sensitization around income and expenditure, what is the holding cost, you know, just the sort of stuff that you and your accountant or your professionals are going to sit down and work through from a forecast as to what my business looks like in the next 6 months until we start getting towards a BAU type pattern, and then post the new world, potentially, you know, borders are shut and different sort of looking tourism market, etc. What does my business look like then? You'd be able to evidence that you have the ability to service this thing, because it is debt at the end of the day.
Yeah. There we go. Oh, okay. All right. I'm going to have a go at sharing this. So give me a moment.
Basically, what Darren's going to come up with, it's just a, this is how Kiwibank has decided, and I think all banks will be slightly different. But there's some of the eligibility criteria. So your business has been negatively impacted, the full loan amounts required to meet urgent liquidity, some of the stuff that we talked about. And then if you scroll down, it's just going to ask for your business and details, who we're going to ask. And then it says, you know, how much you actually need to borrow, maximum of 500K. One thing to say on that is that just because the government has said, yeah, you can go up to 500K, that doesn't necessarily mean that every business is going to be given 500 or lent $500,000. It will be on we're going to be asking the questions of actually how much do you need? What's your true cash burn going to look like over the next 3, maybe 6 months period? And is that what we will lend? Each bank is I can't remember what the total amount of billions were, but each bank will be given a proportion of the.
It was 6.25 or 6.5.
Yeah, so 6.25. So dependent on your market share. So obviously Kiwibank, being the smaller of the lot, has only probably has got a lot less than the BNZ would have to lend, but ultimately it's a percentage. So the banks have a finite amount that they can lend, so they will lend to those businesses that they truly believe will still be able to repay and be here at the end of, when we get through, however long the period is, but once we get through this COVID-19 issue, if the business isn't going to survive or it isn't viable, we're going to say no.
I think the great thing about the scheme, though, is it's the business that are potentially cash flow strong but security poor that may have found it difficult to get funding previously. Yeah. So they'll have the ability to use this to borrow money where, you know, potentially trading mix could have been a bit more challenged around you don't have the security to do this. So this is where additional comfort comes in.
Okay.
Sorry, can I just ask a question? So if you're a business that has the cash flow, it potentially means that they don't have to put their house on the line to get this loan. Is that correct?
Because we're only dealing with our own clients, we've probably got the security anyway, Rach.
Yeah.
But short answer is if you don't have the housing behind it, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's unlikely that you know, if the BNZ turn you down, you're not going to come to Kiwibank and be approved.
Yeah.
So just to bring it back to basics then. So the advice would be to talk to your bank, obviously, In doing so, get your accountant involved in the process, because you're likely to want, well, you're definitely going to want to see some financial information. So for those who are unfamiliar with the process, then that'll be your historical financial accounts. So most have just rolled over for the last year. So it'll be your last maybe 1, 2, 3 years of full financial accounts, and then a cash flow forecast for the next say 3 months or longer, I suppose. And normally those are prepared on a monthly basis, so cash in and cash out each month. But I would assume you'd want to see perhaps even weekly, or not maybe daily.
It depends on there's no sort of one answer here, Darren. From the point of view, each business is very, very different. We do need to understand what the cash burn is going to be until such time as we're up and trading. So whether that's a weekly, monthly, or just a accumulated period, it's just being able to get comfort around that evidence. And then from that, what does viability look like? So, and the ability to understand the rationale behind, or some commentary around those numbers as to how you think you're going to get there. But yes, that was a good summary of yours.
I mean, if you're I think Murray mentioned this before, if you're an inbound, an inbound tourist operator, even if we get down to level 3, level 2, level 1, we don't know what's happening with the borders, and whether we'll be getting overseas tourists coming in. So we would suspect that those businesses will take a lot longer to recover, or possibly even fail, which, and we try not to be negative about that. Whereas if you're possibly, a restaurant, cafe, McDonald's franchise, Subway sort of things, as soon as people are able to get out and about, the chances are they'll be going in and eating some of the foods that they used to be able to eat, and therefore those businesses are going to recover a lot quicker. So if we can fund the cash that you're burning up while you're not having any income, we'll fund those, and that business is able to come back on board a lot quicker than, as I say, an inbound tourist.
Okay. And is it fair to say that probably the easiest thing for a bank to assist you with is temporary overdraft? I think it was on your first slide. Is that the easiest thing to grant in terms of a approval process, as opposed to going through?
All banks are going to be different, but in our case, our business partners and commercial partners have got sort of like a special delegation authority at the moment, where they can deal with most of their clients' requests themselves without reference.
The easiest thing to approve really is interest only. So be going from P&I to interest only for a period of up to 6 months. Then it would be what we call TERs, so temporary excess requests. And normally with temporary overdrafts or temporary excesses, we actually we would look to see a source of clearance. In other words, it's just a timing issue. You've got some cash coming in, but it hasn't quite come in yet. Right now, we're not needing to see a source of clearance. We're just saying, okay, here's some money for 6 months. And then the next part would be, the next easiest is the deferment holiday. And then the last piece would be the business finance guarantee.
Okay.
So at this stage, you can't actually approve the business finance guarantee loans, can you? Because the agreements with the government haven't been fully signed.
We can approve them, we just can't document them. We're still probably a week away.
Okay. So people can get approval, but obviously the money won't get into their accounts until it's been documented and signed.
Again, we can provide temporary facilities and stuff to cover that in the short term.
So whilst it says that you're not able to refinance, you can the loan can refinance a temporary overdraft.
Yeah.
Because it's part of the whole process.
I'd like to think that people will just be just pausing a wee bit to understand what their requirements are, rather than just jumping into debt now. Spend a little bit of time over the next week or two understanding, once we find out a little bit more information this week, and then next Monday as to what lockdown looks like. And then we're making informed decisions about the sort of debt where we need, rather than just jumping into debt, because it seems like it's an easy opportunity to do so.
Yeah.
That's good advice, Murray.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there any other questions?
I
I had one, Darren, for Murray and Eddie. Firstly, Murray and Eddie, thanks for giving your time and being open and frank and working together, which is great. So obviously, funding facilities and cash flow and everything's pretty paramount at the moment, and you'll apply your normal banking criteria. I'm just thinking about how and whether we can use this as an opportunity to support, work together to support businesses in other ways. You'll know Darren and Rach have been running the business coaching side of it. So there's going to be a fair bit of triage needed, and what does instant surgery or patch up look like, or support actually look like. So turning our minds to, okay, what does support and recovery look like over the next 1, 2, 3 months that organisations like Swift and the local council could play?
That's an awesome question. Eddie, you got an answer? I mean, look, from my point of view, we've got a reasonable team and a reasonable presence, as Kiwibank has in the community. We've got some pretty skilled staff around that are all happy to step up and into alongside organisations like yourselves and Fire Station and the likes. So if there's assistance that's needed, just pick up the phone and talk to any of the two teams, or I imagine most banks will be in the same position. We're pretty deep involved in our communities and want to do the right thing and see businesses succeed. So however we can assist, just tap us on the shoulder.
I agree. I mean, there's nothing specific as such that there's a support program put out apart from what we're doing for our own, obviously for our own customers. And we do, again, even though we're the bankers, we give advice, we have to be very, very careful about the type of advice due to the Financial Advisors Act, et cetera, et cetera. So I would always suggest that your accountant is one of your first points of call. But if you want some guidance, absolutely pick up the phone and talk to your local BNZ or your local Kiwibank representative, or any bank. As I say, it's in situations like this where the competitiveness around banking, etc., probably goes out the window, and we just have to all hunker down and go, right, what's best for New Zealand Inc. at the moment. So I'm happy to talk to anybody's customers, really, as I'm sure that Murray would be as well.
Yep.
Darren's just texted me. He's had some technological issues and his computer is hung. So he's just going to look like a stunned mullet for the time being, because although I think he's dropped off and he's going to try again. Are there any final questions for today's session? No, it looks like everyone is, here's Darren's back now. So just to wrap up, thank you so much for joining the call. Eddie, Murray, thank you very much for your advice. Probably the biggest takeout for me, for all of you, is to do your homework first. Let's have a look and see what level 2 and level 3 restrictions might look like. I think that's getting announced in the next few days, and then we'll know definitively next week about whether the lockdown will be extended or restrictions will be eased. And from then you can start making some educated decisions on what's best for your business. But you should start planning now. If we go to level 3 restriction, what does that look like for your business, and how, if possible, can you start trading if you're not being able to trade, and therefore again level 2. So if you've got the time, start planning for that now. Darren, are you back? Can't hear you.
That's perfect. That's where it should be.
No, still can't hear you. Technology is great sometimes. I must say, we've been using Zoom consistently since lockdown started, and this is our first real technology hitch mid-session. So I think, are you there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
All right. Well, it sounds like you were summing up nicely. I'm surplus.
You want to wrap up?
So I think that was probably a good summary. So yeah, thanks to everyone. Thanks for making this possible.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
These webinar series are all being recorded, and they are, if you've missed the previous two, the first one was on the top 10 things you should be doing, and the second one was on employment matters and advice from EMA. They are available to be viewed on swnz.co. So if you want to jump on and watch those, go ahead, and this one will be added to that in the coming days.
Yes, thank you very much, Rachel. Yeah, so yeah, thanks again. Thanks to Murray. Thanks to Eddie. Thanks, Francis. Thanks everyone else for being part of this. We'll be back next Tuesday at 10 o'clock, which will be, hopefully, we should know whether or not we are allowed out of our houses and therefore perhaps into our businesses. But yeah, so we're working on the topic, maybe marketing, maybe something else. We'll let you know as soon as we can. Thanks very much. And
awesome. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.